Good morning, everybody. This is a live extreme weather briefing, an emergency briefing, as we have a threat of strong to violent tornadoes, mainly in the overnight hours tonight across western Kansas into northwestern Oklahoma and the far northeastern Texas Panhandle. Storm Prediction Center has an enhanced risk out as this bowling ball of a storm system is about to eject from the southern Rockies. There you can see here on water vapor satellite, you can see the center of that vortex right near the Four Corners region as advertised. You can also see the cold cloud tops here across Wyoming where that heavier snow and winter storm is starting to break out. There's also some convective rain starting to break out across the Nebraska Panhandle, lifting up into southwestern South Dakota. And that's where the winter storm is going to be the most intense. It looks like late tonight into tomorrow morning across the highest peaks of the Black Hills and the northern slopes of those Black Hills could see well over a foot. Some of the models are even showing 2 to 3 feet of snowfall up there on the backside of this mid-latitude cyclone. So in the warm sector, looks like a threat of strong to violent tornadoes, mainly in the overnight hours tonight, possibly near evening. Looks like some of those severe storms could develop across western Kansas into the northeastern Texas Panhandle. Some of the models are even showing a storm to develop across southwestern Oklahoma City in the late night hours tonight, and then moving towards central Oklahoma. That is definitely a possible mode. Here you can see the very large elevated mix layer, or basically slot in the mid-levels of the troposphere around the southeastern and south side of that big-time bowling ball of a trough that's coming off the northern Mexican plateau there, northern Mexico, the Mexican plateau, excuse me. Dry air coming in the mid-levels of the atmosphere over top that moisture return. That is going to be coming in late, so because the Sunday system was so potent, it pushed that moisture down into central Texas, but it does arrive on the with the help of a 40, 50, even 60-knot low-level jet pumping that moisture northward through the high plains, through western Kansas, a nice skinny axis there by the evening that's going to fatten up in the overnight hours with that strong to potentially violent tornado threat tonight. That's why the Storm Prediction Center does have this threat of the strong tornadoes. And on the backside of this big-time mid-latitude cyclone, this is at 12Z, where it has a 992 low there across western South Dakota. That's a very deep mid-latitude cyclone. Colorado low, we call it, because they often develop in eastern Colorado and then eject northeastward across Tornado Alley. But at this time, at 12Z, you've got those really tight isobars on the backside of this system. Big-time northerlies, very heavy snow is going to be hammering the Black Hills, where some of those models are even showing 2 to 3 feet of snowfall there by the morning hours. And here are some of these snow maps. This is the GFS model showing 2 to 3 feet of snow there across the northern slope of the Black Hills, northwestern South Dakota, southwestern corner there of North Dakota, a large swath of eastern Montana, including the broadest area up toward Glendive, up toward those areas where we were chasing tornadoes around the June 10 time frame, and a large portion of northeastern Wyoming, good 4 to 8 inch snowfall across the high plains. Higher totals up in the mountains, definitely. And those higher resolution models help us to resolve the orographic effects a little bit. This seems a bit more reasonable for snowfall totals across the Black Hills, northern slope of the Black Hills into eastern Montana, possibly up to 2 feet of snow. Glendive, you're going to get hammered by this snowstorm on the backside of this, especially tonight through tomorrow morning, Wednesday morning. And that includes areas like Deadwood and Lead are absolutely going to get slammed by the cold side of this storm system. So definitely a big-time mid-latitude cyclone there. On the backside, deepening down to about 990 millibars. Some of the models are showing it wobbling into the 980 time frame and then becoming vertically stacked over the central Dakotas there during the day tomorrow. And there is possibly a marginal severe weather threat that could eject toward the Corn Belt on Wednesday as well. I saw an active day in Illinois yesterday with 6 preliminary tornado reports, some of those near the Washburn area, quite damaging, intense tornadoes. So the very active season that we had in late summer across the Corn Belt and the upper Midwest continues here in the second season, and definitely qualified as a tornado outbreak during the day yesterday. So today, the RAMP model by 20Z has that skinny instability axis all the way up into the Nebraska Panhandle. And I wouldn't be surprised if the best chance of a daytime tornado is up in the Nebraska Panhandle. So watch for that coverage out of Dan Fitz later on today. That's that instability axis showing No or minimal convective inhibition and non-zero instability all the way up through western Kansas by 20Z. So by 2 to 3 p.m., you've already got a decent instability axis all the way off to the north. The heart of that instability axis you can see is at 20Z is advecting rapidly northward through the eastern Texas Panhandle. A much thicker instability axis is going to be found down there near evening, and it does look like this is going to be especially a big-time nocturnal event. Probably the 3 hours after sunset, starting at about sunset, probably going to be the most favorable tornado threat out there. So Gizmo and I are getting ready to hit the road here pretty soon. First, though, I want to give you a good breakdown of these forecast models. Let me swing back to the other model here as well, and then we'll look at some of the convective allowing models to assess the timing of the severe weather threat north to south throughout that instability axis. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the Storm Chaser basketball game that happened yesterday. Always fun. Feeling a little sore this morning, however. So here you can see the 3-kilometer NAM. Let me show you that trough ejection, the big bowling ball of a trough that is ejecting right now from the Mountain West and moving across Tornado Alley, Central and Northern Tornado Alley, and Southern Tornado Alley. Just a big bowling ball of a trough, so a big impactful system here. Blizzard conditions, even on the backside of this bowling ball of a trough it's about to eject. So here are this is the 12Z 3-kilometer NAM. Based on satellite, has a pretty good positioning so far this late morning. With the positioning of that compact vortex elevated mixed layer coming around the south and the southeast side of this bowling ball of a system. There you can see that very cold air aloft here. That vortex right over the Four Corners, lifting a little bit off to the north of the Four Corners region. So the 3-kilometer NAM has very good initial position here with that vortex. So pretty good model there. Look at this low-level jet working hard to pump that moisture northward. So far this morning. Big time low-level jet there. Not surprising considering this is such a powerful upper-level storm system that's ejecting. And in terms of the parameter space here in the overnight hours tonight, I certainly do agree with that threat of strong to violent tornadoes tonight. You're going to have a 50 to 60 knot low-level jet, 300 plus 0 to 1 kilometer storm relative helicity. You're going to have a little bit of convective inhibition with that nocturnal inversion that'll build in with the loss of surface heating. If we didn't have that kicker system on Sunday, or the initial system on Sunday, then we'd probably be talking about an even more widespread outbreak. But definitely should be effective at digging that moisture out of central Texas, overspreading the western high plains. This is at 21Z, looking at the evolution of this low-level jet on the synoptic scale here. And it really starts to ramp up here. This is at 21Z, and you can see the strongest 1-kilometer winds are hugging that 850 low from southwestern Nebraska, Nebraska Panhandle, through far northeastern Colorado, southwestern Nebraska up there. Don't be surprised to see quite a few tornadoes up there as well into the Nebraska Panhandle. Certainly a decent play would be to work that Nebraska Panhandle region and then head up toward the Deadwood region to intercept the snow as well, to get the 2-for-1 type of an experience out there. That would be probably the Hail Mary approach for storm chasing. But at 21Z, it does look like, at least compared to the RAP, that the 3-kilometer NAM isn't as aggressive with that instability axis here into the eastern Nebraska Panhandle. But the RAP seems to do a very good job with the rate of moisture return, new moisture. You can see, though, the greatest cape is down here over the Turkey, Texas area. I wonder if you can get diurnal initiation, terrain-induced off this dryline bulge down there over the southern Texas Panhandle down toward Turkey. But that's at 21Z, about 4 p.m. Central Daylight Time. Talking about 500 to 750 cape nosing up into the central Nebraska Panhandle by about 4 p.m., 3 p.m. Mountain Time. That's a decent cape up there, about 1,000 cape. So I won't be surprised to see an arc of supercells up there into the Nebraska Panhandle even. And that convection is going to be feeding northward toward the Black Hills. So that's going to aid in some of that big-time snowfall once that, I believe that there is snow already this morning on the highest peaks of the Black Hills as well. So this is at 23Z. You're starting to see some major thickening of that instability axis down here over the southeastern Texas Panhandle, nosing into far southwestern Oklahoma. That's the best instability axis right down there. So there could be a potential of diurnal supercell initiation off of this little dryline bulge out here, this mesoscale dryline bulge near Turkey, Texas, up toward the Childress area. Don't be surprised to see diurnal supercell initiation down there. I'll be keeping an eye on that. Also, you're going to get supercell initiation over the Sidney, Nebraska area up into the central Nebraska Panhandle into northeastern Colorado with that relatively skinny instability axis there. And then starting at 0Z, you're going to really see that instability axis begin to broaden across western Kansas. So the thicker instability, though, remains across the Texas Panhandle down toward the Childress area. Need to keep a very close eye on that for convective initiation, maybe even during the daylight hours, about 6 or 7 p.m. Not much of a capping inversion down there, so it won't take much of a dryline bulge to really get a supercell going down there. And you do have very favorable kinematics right to the left of my head. You can start to see that hook-shaped photograph there. I could take my head away, my bowling ball head here, and then you can see just a textbook photograph there. East-northeast and northeast storm motion down into and this is down near the Childress area, so that's a very favorable photograph. A lot of directional change in the direction and the speed shear, changing direction and speed in the lowest 2 kilometers, showing you quite a bit of wind shear, some relatively steep low-level lapse rates, even though at this time you're starting to lose a little bit of that surface heating, creating a bit of a nocturnal inversion. We'll just have to assess these convective allowing models for the development of storms down there, but you can see eastern Colorado begins to convect by this time, by about 0Z, and those meridional storm motions should increase the residence time of those individual storms within that skinny instability axis. And this is at 1Z, so we should start to get a broadening of that cape. And even though you're going to lose surface heating a little bit just after sunset, those strong low-level mesocyclones will have the ability to drill through that shallow stable layer right near the low levels, and that could create tornado potential. And we just observed some of those forecast photographs down here where that instability axis is a little bit thicker near the Childress area, up toward Amarillo, southwest corner of Oklahoma. Convective initiation down there during the daylight hours, very conditional, if not unlikely, but there is a threat of that nocturnal initiation all the way down. But the Storm Prediction Center overnight tonight expects the greatest concentration of tornadoes and supercell storms across western Kansas into the far northeastern Texas Panhandle, spreading into northwest Oklahoma overnight. And that's at 2Z. Look at that instability axis starting to build through the eastern Texas Panhandle, a lot thicker down here, eastern Texas Panhandle, northwest Oklahoma, or southwest Oklahoma, northwest Texas. Major convect, big washing out the northern sliver of that instability axis way off to the north. But look at the storm relative helicity. This shows you just how kinematically favorable this event is for strong tornadoes, and this is why we have that strong tornado potential. It's going to be more of a nocturnal event, but big time storm relative helicity from southwestern Nebraska, even all the way through the Nebraska Panhandle. Very favorable 0 to 1 kilometer shear up there, and extends through western Kansas down into the northeastern Texas Panhandle. Just clicking on a sounding there near the northeastern Texas Panhandle just shows you how incredible that wind shear is. And let me bring this down just a little bit so that you can see this massive photograph in all of its glory up there. So this right here is a monster photograph. You've got a 1 kilometer wind of about 65, even pushing 70 knots, almost out of the due south. You've got a surface wind of about 20 knots. That's a fully decoupled boundary layer right there. But a shallow layer of stable air could make it possible for a low-level mesocyclone to drill through that. This right here is a big-time stable layer, though, cooling down into the 60s in the northeastern Texas Panhandle. Quite a big capping inversion there as well, but not surprisingly, that's a massive photograph, which could make it possible for a low-level mesocyclone to drill through that shallow stable layer at the low levels. And that's why the Storm Prediction Center has that threat of strong tornadoes during the overnight hours. So now let's take a look a little bit closer at the convective evolution here. Timing, convective mode. That's just an incredibly favorable kinematic environment for strong tornadoes down in that warm sector. Look at that low-level jet ramping up 50 to 60 knots out here through western Kansas, down into the northeastern Texas Panhandle, eastern Oklahoma Panhandle, northwest Oklahoma. You lose it a little bit over the high plains, but you're getting closer to 850 out here across the Nebraska Panhandle. So you look at 700 millibars. Plenty of strong flow there. South-southeasterly 700 winds across the Nebraska Panhandle up into the Deadwood area. Allergies. So let's see what the 3-kilometer NAM shows here for convective evolution. This is in the late night hours tonight at about 3Z. So you go a little bit earlier, about 23Z. Let's even go a couple hours before that and see what it looks like in the nose of that instability axis when storms first get going. Storms are first going to develop over the Nebraska Panhandle up here, right on the nose of that instability, an environment of about 500 to 750 surface-based cape out here, but some pretty strong 0 to 3 kilometer shear as well up across the southern Nebraska Panhandle. So we can look at the 0 to 3 kilometer SRH layer. And you can see that these develop within an environment of about 200 0 to 3 kilometer storm relative felicity. This is in the cold side up here, so that's why you see these inflated values there by the northerlies across western South Dakota up into the far northern portion of the Nebraska Panhandle, where they're going to get hammered by big-time snowfall. Further south, you got about 200 0 to 3 kilometer shear that those little miniature supercells are going to develop, an arc of supercells that will evolve across the central and southern Nebraska Panhandle. You get about 200 to 250 0 to 3 kilometer SRH available to these storms, aided by those surface easterlies here across the southeastern Nebraska Panhandle. Dew points 40s to around 50 up there. So that's a very borderline thermodynamic environment. The RAP model shows it even a little bit better, but by about 5 to 7 p.m., you start to get the arrival of those 50 dew points into the northeastern corner of Colorado, into the southern Nebraska Panhandle. So you could see potentially a tornado up there with dew points in the 40s there on the very northern side of that instability axis. But by 0Z, then you get convective initiation down near the Colorado-Kansas border about 6 or 7 p.m. Looks like it's going to develop into eastern Colorado, into the central Oklahoma Panhandle. Definitely with the arrival of that jet streak happening. Supercell storms seem to be likely. Rapid initiation of these supercell storms by about 7 to 8 p.m. Right near that Colorado-Kansas border further north. Some convective initiation being indicated down into southwestern Kansas as well, down near the Syracuse area. You got supercell storms now evolving with those 50 to the low 50s dew points across northeastern Colorado, moving into the southern Nebraska Panhandle. And then you get the arrival of these convective snows into the Black Hills. The higher peaks of the Black Hills are just going to get absolutely pasted up there, throttled by big-time snowfall rates. These supercell storms are going to lift north into that cold air, cross over into the cold air. Thunder, snow, thunder and lightning over Deadwood expected tonight. Strong tornado potential could happen here near Goodland area, down through to Dodge City as well, starting at about 8 p.m. when those storms do explosively initiate. And then the northern Texas Panhandle convects by about 9 p.m. according to the 3-kilometer NAM. Let's take a look at those dew points. So that convective initiation up near the central Kansas, Colorado border, you're talking 50s dew points, maybe into the upper 50s. But in the northern Texas Panhandle, with those storms initiating by about 9 p.m., you're going to have 60s dew points there, low to mid-60s dew points, even up into the central Oklahoma Panhandle, down through the Texas Panhandle. Amarillo is going to have a sloshing dry line there, at least in the early evening hours, just after sunset. Channel of moisture coming up the Red River Valley there, nosing up into the Childress area, southeastern Texas Panhandle by about 9 p.m. So it does look like that northern Texas Panhandle toward the Guyman area into the Oklahoma Panhandle should have those 60s dew points up there. And the 3-kilometer NAM shows a nice mode of supercells here across the northern Texas Panhandle into the central and eastern Oklahoma Panhandle up here into the far southwestern corner of Kansas. That's where the Storm Prediction Center has the max probability of those potentially strong tornadoes there as well, right there across that Texas Panhandle. Man, I've heard this guy talk on the phone all early morning, all morning long next door. He's got a really low voice. I don't know if you guys can hear it. You can probably hear it in the background, but it is a real pain in the ass. So there is a surface low, southern Nebraska Panhandle by this time, about 9-10 p.m. Southeasterly winds, even more southeasterly here from basically central Kansas down into the northeastern Texas Panhandle there. East-southeasterly or due southeasterly surface winds, making an even more kinematically favorable environment. This does remind me of a nocturnal event back in 2015 near Plains, Kansas, a nighttime tornado, southwestern Kansas, a wedge that I got very close to. I was chasing that thing in the fog out there, came through the fog, and then bam, big time cone wedge tornado near Plains, Kansas, and it produced another one just northeast of that, even damaging some of the wind turbines up there. You can just still hear that low voice. It's really difficult to even work. I have kind of OCD, so I hone in on those little things like that. So let's go a little further north now, look at Deadwood, just to look at some of these convective snows that will be dominating. And this is tonight at about 10 p.m., and you can very clearly make out the higher terrain here, the Black Hills, absolutely getting hammered tonight, peaking tomorrow morning on the backside of that system. Very tight isobars there on the backside. Probably will have blizzard conditions up there on Terry Peak, up toward Lead. Late night tonight, that's about midnight. Snow also falling across eastern Montana, eastern Wyoming, Casper area up there toward Newcastle. Newcastle might be just a little bit lower, so you're not going to get those big totals that you're going to have over the higher terrain of the Black Hills. Lead, Deadwood area. And look at these convective snows here right on the northwestern side of that intense surface low. Looks like up here, changing over to snow rapidly late night, early morning hours tomorrow. Shadron up toward Alliance, up toward Lusk, Wyoming, getting some near blizzard conditions. A little bit of a warm nose could change over some of that snowfall to rain briefly as that low passes just off to the southeast there. That's at 7Z. Early morning hours now on Wednesday. And then you're really going to start getting the big snow as that cold air slides in on the backside of the storm system, really getting hammered in that higher terrain up there, far northwestern corner of the Nebraska Panhandle. Beautiful area up there in the Sandhills, up some higher terrain, far northwestern corner of Nebraska up there. So this is early morning hours on Wednesday. Just shows you that the Black Hills are absolutely going to get hammered there over the higher terrain. Terry Peak, especially the northern slope, where you get a little bit of orographic enhancement too, with these northerlies and northwesterly winds on the backside of this low 990s up there. You've also got Hurricane Pamela, that's a Category 1 that's slingshotting up toward Mazatlan in Mexico. That's going to come in on Wednesday. Doesn't look as strong as some of the models were showing, and it's going to be accelerating late season hurricane there over the western coast of Mexico. So I definitely would rather chase even this blizzard condition on the backside up here in Deadwood than that event. I just love the temperature gradients that make these mid-latitude cyclones thrive, causing tornadoes in the warm sector, low-level jets of 50 to 60 knots, even approaching hurricane force just above the ground. Just incredible. And the northern slopes here are going to be getting hammered by Wednesday morning, the northern slope of the Black Hills here. And that deformation zone band wraps all the way into the Nebraska Panhandle. Dan Fitz is going to be a hero out here covering this winter weather condition there across the Nebraska Panhandle, northwestern corner of Nebraska, southwestern corner of South Dakota now as well. And then this system becomes vertically stacked on Wednesday, which is going to mitigate the threat of severe weather across the Corn Belt, portions of the upper Midwest as well. So that's the cold side of this system. Broadest, you're going to get hammered up toward Glendive, Montana. We already started with the snow maps this morning. So let's take a look really quickly at our least favorite model, the HRRR here. Let's go back further south into the southern plains, and we are just going to look at this very quickly, just for a little bit of timing on the development of these storms, a target area as well. This is at 0Z, showing that surface low right over Sydney. 6 p.m. Mountain. And I think there's going to be tornadoes here across the Nebraska Panhandle on the north side of that surface low, an arc of low-top supercells across the northeastern corner of Colorado, far southwestern Nebraska as well, through the western Kansas, all along that Kansas-Colorado border down here. I think that the threat of daytime storms and tornadoes might be greatest from the central Nebraska Panhandle all the way down. And then we start to get supercells down near the Goodland area. This is at about sunset. This is, about 6 p.m. down there near Goodland, 50s dew points. And that supercell races off to the northwest, and then you get rapid convective initiation across western Kansas right at about 7 p.m. So there is definitely a threat of a daytime tornado right near about 7 p.m. here across western Kansas, 7 to 8 p.m. But also look at the HRRR here initiating these surface-based storms across southwestern Oklahoma. That could be a daytime mode that could sneak up on us. That's the thicker instability axis down there. The Storm Prediction Center doesn't seem to buy that mode quite as well over southwestern Oklahoma, potentially threatening the Oklahoma City Metro again. That's at 8 p.m. And that mode develops at about 6 p.m. down near the Childress area. 3-kilometer NAM is showing that mode could even be more favorable as well. But the HRRR very bullish on that mode here, with those storms developing over some of the rugged terrain out there, southwestern Oklahoma. Some of the higher terrain out there could maybe even encourage convective initiation, a little jet streak coming in from the southwest as well. But the Storm Prediction Center really likes this mode across western Kansas into the Oklahoma Panhandle, developing at about 7 or 8 p.m. right there. Very kinematically favorable environment for even strong tornadoes across western Kansas. If this mode does happen, southwestern Oklahoma, look out for that as well. But am I going to be the one that's going to be willing to hang into southwestern Oklahoma the entire time when western Kansas is blowing up here on the nose of that instability axis? 0 to 1 kilometer EHIs really peaking up there, ripping into southwestern Kansas. An arc of supercells extending all the way up into the southern Nebraska Panhandle as well. So will this mode here happen in southwestern Oklahoma? Oklahomans keep a very close eye on that. That would be taking that classic I-44 corridor track up toward the Oklahoma City Metro by the evening hours. Keep an eye on that mode as well. The main mode here, though, is this arc here to the north of that bulge in the eastern Texas Panhandle, the northeastern corner of it, central eastern Oklahoma Panhandle, into southwestern Kansas. Looks like the most favorable environment there for that strong tornado potential. So I do think that it's possible, if the HRRR continues to show that mode into southwestern Oklahoma, that the Storm Prediction Center might extend that 10% area and the hatched area down into southwestern Oklahoma and including the Oklahoma City Metro. But just to cover their ass, they've got a 5% out there, southwestern Oklahoma into the Oklahoma City metro area, so we will be keeping a very close eye on that as well. But big time mid-latitude trough ejection, a lot of big winter storm on the backside, eastern Montana, far western Dakotas, Black Hills especially, and then in the warm sector, models are basically still showing a rapid development of supercell storms about 6 to 8 p.m. right near that Colorado-Kansas border. And looks like mainly a nocturnal mode of those strong tornadoes. So I'm going to get ready to head out here, head toward western Kansas and intercept those storms. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to my weather reports here. Definitely a very active couple of days coming up with this trough ejection. Thank you for joining me for this weather report, and stay safe. Stay tuned to those severe weather watches and warnings, especially Nebraska Panhandle all the way through western Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas Panhandles, maybe even southwest Oklahoma into central Oklahoma could be a mode of renegade supercells that also develop at about 6 to 8 p.m. But the models are a little bit more conditional with that southern mode. So storm chase mode is about to be activated. Thank you for joining me for this morning weather briefing. Never stop chasing.